Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar, Building the Perfect Hotel Tech Stack for Your Property. My name is Nancy Huang. I am the Marketing Director for Travel Tripper. First, I want to introduce all of our panelists for the hour. With us today, we have Gautam Lula, President at Travel Tripper. Gautam has 19 years of experience in hotel technology, having worked across 3 continents with Taj Group, Pegasus Solutions, and Amadeus. He has led Travel Tripper since early 2008, spearheading its evolution into an industry leader in hotel distribution and marketing solutions. We also have with us Joost Schap. He is the founder and CEO at Stay in Touch. He has a 20-plus year track record in hotel technology, and he began Stay in Touch with the vision of reinventing the hotel PMS, making it simple, mobile, and cloud-based. Prior to Stay in Touch, Joost worked with Micros, now known as Oracle, as the Senior VP of Global Product Development for the Lodging and E-commerce divisions. And we also have with us Stefan Travaza. He's the CEO at Snapshot. Stefan has 2 decades of experience in technology, having served as the head of marketing and retail at Telekom Austria, as well as being a key member of Google's European management team. Since 2015, Stefan has been leading Snapshot, which provides hotels with technology that transforms rich data into revenue-driving analytics. So next, I'd like to review our agenda for today. First, we'll do a quick overview of the key tools and platforms that hotels need to stay competitive. And then we'll have Gautam speaking on the most important components of a modern CRS and booking system. Then we'll have Joost talk about how a mobile PMS can streamline hotel operations and improve front of the house and back of the house communications. Then Stefan will talk about how hotel tech is evolving and what you should do to embrace it. And then last, we'll have a group discussion about how to evaluate tech providers and what questions you should be asking of all of your vendors. At this point, I want to welcome all of you in the audience to submit questions anytime you have questions into the GoToWebinar control panel. And at the end, during our group discussion, we'll take questions from the audience. But first, I'd like to do a quick audience poll. We have a couple questions. The first question I'd like to ask all of you are, what are the biggest pain points for choosing any technology platform? So you can select all that apply, and I'll open up the poll in just a moment here. The options are price, integrations, concerns about cloud reliability, training and implementation, and security. So again, you may select all that apply for you. So we'll give everyone about another 30 seconds or so to respond to the poll. Okay, we'll wrap up the poll right now and share those results. Oh, this is great. 87% integrations seems to be the biggest pain point, followed by price, training and implementation, and then security and concerns about cloud reliability. So that brings us to our next audience poll question. Another quick question. In your hotel, who generally makes the final decision on which tech platform the hotel uses? And this can be tech platforms across the board. Is it the hotel owner or operator, the general manager, the revenue manager, IT team, or someone else? So we'll launch that poll now. And we'll give just another few seconds here before we close up this poll. All right, and with this one, we have the hotel owner and operator being the primary decision maker, followed by the general manager and then the IT team. So I want to thank you all for your participation. We'll actually get back to some of these poll questions a little bit later in our discussion. But before we jump into the speakers, I want to show you all this great infographic here that was created by Snapshot that shows you just how complex the tech stack is for hotels. There are so many different types of platforms to use and so many different types of platforms to integrate as well. I know integration is a big pain point here. Most of you know the key platforms. So the PMS or property management system is usually the heart of most hotels' tech platforms. And then we also have the central reservation system, so the CRS and booking engine, along with other distribution platforms such as the GDS and channel manager. We have the revenue management software, which can range anywhere from pricing and analytics tools to rate shoppers. There's also CRM and guest feedback platforms, as well as all of the range of digital marketing tools, such as websites, social media, and analytics, as well as on-property management tools as well. So unfortunately, we don't have time to address every single type of software available to hotels today, but what we hope to do in today's webinar is address some of these questions. So understanding what's essential to the system, how to evaluate a platform and determine its value to your property, the possibilities that new technology brings, as well as how technology can inform decision-making at your property. And so with that, I want to hand over the presentation to Gautam.
Good morning, everybody. This is Gautam from Travel Tripper. So let me dive right into it. So Travel Tripper, we are in the business of providing central reservation systems. So what exactly is a central reservation system? So the CRS platform is a platform that allows for, it's centralized in two ways. It allows for centralized distribution of hotel inventory to a number of different channels, but it is also centralized from a hotel group's perspective in that it allows for management of hotel pricing, information, and reservations for multiple hotels in a single platform. But what are the channels that a CRS typically addresses? The CRS will typically address the website and booking engine, of course, the call center, and these two are the hotel's own direct channels, a channel management solution that will connect the hotel to the various online travel agencies out there, global distribution systems such as Sabre, Amadeus, and Travelport, and a relatively recent addition, although they've been around for some time now, are meta search sites such as TripAdvisor, Trivago, Kayak, Google, and there's an increasing number of these as well. In addition to this, the CRS will connect to a host of different systems. Of course, the property management system is a primary one, but there are potentially a large number of other systems that a CRS would connect to, which we have not drawn out in this chart, such as revenue management systems or CRM systems, and including loyalty management systems, which we have represented over here. All of the reservations that come into a CRS are delivered into the property management system. So that is at the heart of what a central res system actually does for a hotel. Nancy, if we can move on to the next slide. So in terms of capabilities of the CRS, what are the features and different tools that one would expect to have in a CRS? We've divided them into two columns, and of course we've listed some of the main ones, and we can't possibly list all of them. However, these include what a CRS must have and what a CRS, what would be great to find in a CRS application. So in the must-have side, we have things like, of course, hotel level data, all pricing information, rooms, inventory, reservations necessarily, connectivity and APIs to different applications, and a whole host of business rules, reporting, security. On the nice to haves or great to haves, you'll find capabilities such as we find in our REST-strip CRS, such as dynamic pricing rules, geographic pricing, rate match, or the ability to dynamically match lower prices found on online travel agencies, loyalty and CRM integrations. Increasingly, we will find the need for artificial intelligence in a CRS that will do everything from serve up the right rates and right content to the right audience. So kind of, in some ways, mimicking what a revenue management system does, but in different dimensions, not just for pricing, but for other types of content as well. And then soon we will see voice search as well come into the picture. So what you see is the two columns. The great to haves will differentiate what a very nice CRS will have from a basic or fundamental CRS. And the great to haves obviously are the ones that help drive direct bookings, the most profitable bookings that a hotel can get. Move to the next slide. So so we're going to focus on one or two aspects of what a modern CRS platform will look like. So what we have seen so far in the industry is that a CRS will provide a booking engine for the hotel's website, but will have no real connection to the hotel website itself. So revenue managers would push and would manage their rates and inventory in the CRS, which would push it to the booking engine and make them available for reservations. And then marketing managers would manage similar content that represents the rates and offers in the content management system to display on the website. This caused double work and double entry, and rarely did these two systems talk to each other. This created a disjointed system that is clunky and very hard to use, and that is not how travelers book today in today's digitally driven marketplace. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see an example of this. Very often you will see an example of how clunky this can be on the hotel's website. You would select, on the hotel website, you'd select dates and search criteria, other search criteria, such as number of adults and children. And then the user would click check availability. And what would happen very often would be that the guest would be then taken to the booking engine, most likely in a different tab, which would create already a first disjointed experience for the user. But not only that, the user would often be asked to enter all of that information again. And naturally, this offers a very not a very nice experience and detracts from conversion rates. So just one example of how hotel websites were not particularly well geared towards e-commerce. If you go to the next slide, Nancy. In modern systems, however, the connections between the CRS booking engine and website is far more seamless. The CRS is used not only to power the booking engine, but also populates all kinds of information on the website to keep it up to date and to remove the need for double data entry by the hotelier. It also creates a much nicer user experience and makes the entire hotel website far more e-commerce driven. It allows the revenue, marketing, and e-commerce teams to work far more productively and to encourage direct reservation from the hotel side. And on the next slide, we'll see an example of an implementation of this. So this is the Washington Park Hotel in Miami, which uses TravelTripper's integrated CRS and website solution. And on the right-hand side, what you'll see is while the guest is on the website itself, you see a live rate calendar with up-to-date pricing that is fed from the CRS. and can be explored while the guest is on any part of the hotel website. So while this is not the booking engine, it is still displaying information that is driven from the CRS and put in front of the guest at any time that they would wish to use it. Moreover, as they select dates, the website will retrieve a final total price, a guaranteed lowest price from the CRS, and display it to the user once they have selected their check-in and check-out dates. When they click select room, they'll be taken directly into the booking engine's availability page, where they will not have to enter that same information all over again. In the center of the screen of the, on the website, you'll also see Travel Tripper's rate match feature working with tonight's rate displayed to the user as soon as they land on the hotel website. This is again information that is being retrieved from the CRS and being displayed directly to the guest before they even reach the booking engine. Guests will automatically see the rate for tonight, and they will be able to compare it with rates from different channels, different online travel agencies for that same hotel right there and then, which encourages them to make bookings right on the hotel site as opposed to going to a online travel agency where they might lose the guest to a different hotel or get the reservation at a very high commission. If we go to the next slide. This is another portion of the hotel site where the hotel is displaying or showing off their primary product, the guest rooms. And all of that room information is populated from the hotel CRS. Everything from room names, room descriptions, room images, and including tonight's rate for that particular room as well, for each of the rooms that are shown. The guest can easily click on one of the room types, and they'll be taken directly to the booking engine with that room selected as the preferred room. Again, providing a far more seamless experience for the user and encouraging direct bookings. If we go to the next slide, Nancy. And lastly, there is a whole new trend of plug-and-play conversion tools that are out there now that CRSs and booking engines should now integrate with. These include platforms like Stay Wonderful, which provides rewards for direct bookings to the guest, Voyant, Click Trips, Hotel Chan, Triptease, and there's a whole lot of other ones as well. So what are these platforms? These are tools that aid conversion on the hotel website that are supposed to boost conversions and direct bookings. These tools usually integrate into a hotel site with using a simple script that is placed on the booking engine, and they are turned on instantly and made live on the hotel website. And they come in a variety of different pricing models, from everything from subscription models on a per room per month basis to a percentage of reservation value. All right, next slide. Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gautam. And now we'll turn it over to Jos.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm going to just talk a little bit on also, I think, what Gautam just mentioned, going back in times a little bit. Obviously, I think we all heard that having a good CRS system integrated nicely with the website is very important, and high quality conversion requires obviously high attention to the path of getting to the booking, to the path of the guest eventually getting interested in and getting into the CRS and making the booking. So if I look back at my history, currently at Stay in Touch and previously at Micros, I think in the 90s and early 2000s, there was this trend of PMS vendors or hotel software vendors trying to develop a set of applications or a suite of applications that would do everything for the hotel. So if you take Micros as an example, they had a PMS, they had a CRS, they had a booking engine, they had a sales engagement, they had pretty much everything you can possibly need. But if you look back at what they've installed, and I think if I look back at my time there, over the years we installed thousands and thousands of PMSs, but we only installed a few CRSs and a few sales and caterings. And to me, that basically meant that if I look back, and out of all the total PMSs that were installed, about 20% of those would also use the CRS from Micros. And I think asking back, once I joined Stay in Touch and started Stay in Touch, I started asking, why is that? And the answer pretty much was that one vendor cannot do everything very well. So I think it's important, and I think that's probably a very good point. It's important that when you select hotel technology, that you look at potentially best of breed, that you look at what is that particular vendor's focus when it comes to delivering software that runs your hotel, that can help you running your hotel. So to that point, in today's age, where everything is in the cloud and where connectivity is a lot easier than it was 5-10 years ago, I think it's very important that you look for a PMS that's at first mobile. Can you go to the first slide? That's the first is mobile. And to me, mobile means that you have better connectivity with your staff, with your guests. So the interaction between staff and guests changes very much and very, very quickly. You get more visibility, you have better communication, you have greater access. Your staff has the ability to access the mobile PMS from anywhere at any time and any device. And a mobile PMS, and I think the newer cloud PMSs also that are out there today, they tend to focus on really the PMS and anything between check-in and check-out. And then if they do a good job, they also have open integrations available to allow other connections and other functions into your hotel to help you operate your business. Next slide, please. So hotel staff with a mobile PMS is no longer tied to their desks. And I think that's, in my opinion, if you look at the mobile world today, all of us are basically having a mobile device with us all day long. The mobile phone is always with you. It's your window of the world. Everything you do, everything you think about, everything you respond to, it somehow traces back to your phone. Business out there today, you do a lot of business on the phone. You order a taxi on the phone, you check in to an airline on the phone. You can now also do that in many hotels. So being mobile is important, not only for guests, but I think also for staff. I think the days, if you look at all the technology, you really had to print a report, attach it to a clipboard, and then go to a meeting. But if you look for a next generation mobile PMS, then in essence you have the ability to leave all that paper where it's supposed to be, in the trees, in the big forests, and bring your iPads to a meeting, or your tablet to a meeting, or your PC to a meeting to answer questions that you have to discuss. So sales and revenue managers can view rates and availability online at any time. They can do it wherever they are. They can do it with their customers. If they negotiate new rates, they can do it while they're traveling. Everything is always with them and it's always up to date. The general manager, and we have a few customers on our site that actually really benefit from that, have instant access to all data that's going on in a hotel. They can see who is arriving. They can see it on their smartphone. They can see it on the tablet and on the PC. So I think being mobile and having a mobile PMS that sits in the cloud really enhances your hotel operation. So it's important that when you pick a new PMS that you do not select, in my opinion, one that's still installed the old way in a server in the hotel, but really one that's kind of made for mobile. Next slide, please. It also empowers, I think, the front office staff. If you can become mobile, if you can remove, that big front desk that we've been using for the last, hundreds of years. Hotel check-ins really haven't changed over the last, years. I was reading a story that the oldest hotel in Japan is from the year 1200, and probably at the time they didn't use computers, but they would probably have a book that would have the list of the arrivals and a list of the departures, and they would kind of manage it all manually. But all people would go to a front desk, to a place where you would basically say, I'm here to check in, and then some administrative work would happen by the person on the other side of that huge desk. And I think the desk itself kind of disconnects the guest from the staff as well. And if you look at multiple interactions today that you see in retail, such as Apple and Nordstrom, when you buy something at an Apple store, you are basically very close to the staff member of the Apple store, and in the interaction of buying something, it's just a much more friendlier process and also a faster process. The advantage of mobile PMS, it integrates usually some of the check-in and check-out components from a smartphone on a smartphone with the system. So instead of having a separate check-in process and a separate check-out process, you basically have an entirely integrated process, which allows hotels to remove the administrative part of the check-in from the check-in process, leave that for the guest to do him or herself, and basically kept the greeting process really becomes a greeting process about the hotel rather than going through a bunch of screens to check in somebody. So empowering the hotel staff, view room status and housekeeping updates instantly and react on them. Better upsell possibilities are there because you can force upsell possibilities. You can send them to a smartphone, you can send them to a tablet on both check-in and check-out. You can instantly update housekeeping and other departments with requests, the extra bed, and rather than having to call somebody, find somebody, all of that sits in the system. And if each staff member uses a mobile device, the communication can be very quickly and very fast. Better management of guest expectations, improve the handling of rate and guest breakup queues around the desk. So you can really, if there are queues, you can take people apart, you can sit them down somewhere else, and you can help them getting into the hotel or getting out of the hotel in the right way. Again, all around mobile interaction between both staff and guests. Next slide, please. Housekeeping, I think, is a big advantage. For housekeeping, mobile is a very big advantage because if you look at the traditional PMS systems, it's basically in the morning, it's a room assignment, it's a clipboard, it's printing, and then it's basically off you go to your floor, you wait for people to leave, and at some point, some people leave, or you start knocking on doors trying to find out who has left. All of that is paperwork. Some hotels have third-party applications such as Hot Sauce, No Cross, that allow that to automate that. But again, they're extra. You have to buy those. And to me, if you look at a mobile PMS today, giving all the opportunities of the simple devices and affordable devices, you should make sure that the mobile PMS that you buy has also mobile housekeeping application or built-in mobile for that. In other words, you should be able to manage the housekeeping department from a desktop, but then the maids or the people that clean the room should be able to access their own phone for that matter, or you provide them with devices to see what rooms they have to do. I think what's also very important with mobile, and I had this question yesterday, is that we all know that a lot of people that stay in the hotel don't check out anymore because they just leave in the morning, which leaves you as a hotel operator with a big problem. That's trying to find who has left and who has not. So which room can I clean and which can I not? Actually, we found in our database of customers that we have that those people that use mobile checkout and activate that for their customers all of a sudden see a 30 to 40% of people checking out, which they didn't do before at the time they leave, which enables not only you, that enables great operational efficiencies because now very early on when people have left and you can start cleaning those rooms. And again, because your staff members will have devices on which they can instantly see those changes. They can act right away. You can turn over your room faster. You can give your room back faster to the hotel guest, and you're pretty much in good shape to receive the next guest for an early check-in or whatever else you need to do. So again, the whole mobility and the whole accessibility, I think, with a PMS of today is key. So when you look for technology, make sure that it's mobile and that it's in the cloud. Next slide, please. And I also think, so before I give it on to Stefan, I think it's also what's very important is to make sure that the technology you choose can integrate with third parties. As I mentioned earlier, when I started this conversation, the older systems, the old, vendors out there, Micros, Infor, Amadeus, Sabre, they bought everything and stuck it together, or they made everything and they put it together. But I think that's a very difficult proposition to maintain, especially when the world's evolving very fast, and when you may want to do something small or want to use a small application to get something specifically done for your hotel. Probably those big vendors will not give you that. You won't be able to get it, and because they do everything okay, but not perfect. Whereas if you find vendors that that focus on one certain component. You saw Travel Trip focusing very heavily on booking engine and CRS, and therefore they can prove that the conversion that they have is higher than the conversion of somebody that offers older solutions. I think you're in a much better position from yourself to grow your company and to make sure that you provide the right solutions for your guests. So I think, you know, what's besides from being mobile and besides from being in the cloud, the PMS needs to also be very open. You know, I think we all agree that the PMS is sort of the core of a hotel. It connects to everything that goes on and happens into the hotel, and based on that, it needs to connect to many different things. Now, when things are in the cloud, it becomes a lot easier to connect than it used to be 5 or 10 years ago. You know, 10 years ago, you had to have a cable and you have to have a PC, 2 PCs on each side to get them connected. Today, if cloud vendors are working together, they can basically shake hands, you know, hypothetically speaking, in the cloud, they're connected and you can do your business without having to deal with anything else. So you need to make sure that the technology you look for has an open API structure or provides many interfaces, ideally through the cloud. What also is important, I think, compared to previous in old days, is that you want to make sure that it updates on a regular basis. When you buy a PMS, especially a young PMS, it will not have all the features that you may have been used to, you know, for the past 10, 20 years with your current system, but it does update on a very regular basis, you know, 2 to 4 weeks. Sometimes companies provide new solutions out there and you get those automatically. You know, every time there's an upgrade, you have access to it. You don't need to buy somebody to come by, install it for you. It's just going to be there. You go home, it's not there. You wake up the next morning and it's there. That's certain things you need to really think about, because if you do that, you can enjoy cost savings, you can drive revenue, you'll receive flexible service, and you can really work towards enhancing your guest service because you have lots of tools available. And with that, Nancy, I'm passing it on to Stefan.
Great. Thank you very much, Jos.
Jos, also thank you from my side. Thanks, Nancy. Everybody, we've heard stories about 2 great pieces of hospitality software. And what I want to do is kind of embrace this and also pick up where Jos left us with his point about how important integration is, which you have confirmed in the initial survey with more than 80% of you saying that integration is the biggest pain point. And Nancy, if you would please go to the next slide, then I would like to use an old example of our documents. Nancy, could you go to the next slide? Yeah, perfect. Use an old examples out of our of the material when we started Snapshot, and we tried to come up with a picture that displays the complexity of the hotel IT environment. And this is a real picture. And I'm kind of preaching to the converted, you all know this, but hotels use dozens of different types of software in their day-to-day operation. Most of them aren't properly integrated. What Jos told you about the cloud and the importance of having open APIs, that's forward-looking, absolutely the right thing. In most instances, when you look at your current hotel IT infrastructure and hotel IT situation that you are faced with today, most of these systems are not integrated at all. And looking at that situation makes it very difficult to properly extract data, to use it and improve upon that data. So, and Nancy, would you please go to the next slide? The reality of what you're faced with today is that you're looking at various different systems, often at various different screens, and those screens are not connected in real time. So making decisions in hotels, regardless of whether it's operational decisions, revenue-oriented decisions, marketing-oriented decisions, decisions that would properly use the property that you are managing, is very, very difficult today because, as I said, hotel systems don't talk to each other today, and you also confirmed with more than 80% of the vote that integrations is the biggest pain point. So Nancy, would you go to the next slide, please? So the disruptive technologies that are required to build a future-safe technology stack for a hotel can be looked upon from 2 dimensions. The first dimension is that you look at everything that you see out there when you do a check-in, a check-out, a booking, what have you. All of these apps are what I would consider to be the tip of the iceberg. The stuff that is very important, but that needs to be driven by a very different technology that is beneath the surface. And beneath the surface, in a very kind of strategic way are 4 technologies that from our perspective here at Snapshot really are going to change the hospitality industry. There's machine learning or artificial intelligence, there's voice recognition, there is robotics, and there is the cloud, distributed cloud computing. So everything that you would kind of know under the name cloud. And these 4 technologies are really going to change the hospitality IT and thus the hospitality industry in itself. Just let me briefly go to some examples. Machine learning might be considered as something very science fiction, but actually it's really out there already. With IBM, for example, you can purchase, if you are a software developer, you can purchase the Watson artificial intelligence as a service. And there are companies out there that are using that. For example, a Japanese insurance company has recently replaced more than 20 insurance agents with artificial intelligence. Another example comes from the banking industry, where one of the leading investment banks on Wall Street has developed software that is taking care of more than 300,000 lawyer hours per year. This by analyzing the details of bond offerings and making suggestions based on that artificial intelligence analysis. So you could argue that machine learning is already here, and just imagine that technology being applied to the hospitality industry. The other example is voice recognition. Today, we do reservations in hotel when we type in stuff in our web browser or on our mobile phone. I would argue that our kids won't learn to type. They will interact with machines learning voice recognition. And if you are using Siri, if you are using Alexa, Cortana, or OK Google, you know how capable these systems are. And basic stuff like ordering room service, like dimming your lights, like opening the curtains, stuff like that, could actually be voice recognition based services in your room, in your hotel, that changes how your guests interact with the hotel without even knowing that it's technology, because we are used from that from our mobile phones. The next point would be robotics. Robotics have been popularized by science fiction movies. We all know the scary robots from movies like Terminator and stuff like that. Today, there are real-life robotic companies out there like Boston Robotics that manufacture robots for the military, but there are also robot companies out there like RoboMate, a company that is working on robots to supplement roommates in a hotel. So again, very real technology, very applicable for the hospitality industry. And finally, all this is or will be based on cloud computing, and that's what Jos said. It's based on so much advantages. It brings so much advantages to the hospitality industry that I'm really very sure that distributed cloud computing and not, if I'm very blunt, PMS systems on a PC somewhere beneath the reception desks are the future of the hospitality industry. So these 4 base industries are what we would consider the lower end of the iceberg that potentially nobody really sees, but that will have a tremendous impact on the hospitality industry. And Nancy, could you go please to the next slide? So what we would argue is that while currently most people in the hospitality industry are struggling with the upper tip of the iceberg, how do my applications look like? How can I make sure that the interaction with these applications is easy, both for the guest as well as for the employee? The big question is, how is the hospitality industry currently embracing the changes that are driven by the part of the technology iceberg that is hidden below the surface? And from our perspective, hotels and the hotel industry overall need to embrace 3 skills. The first skill, and Nancy, if you would please move to the next slide. The first skill really goes back to what you guys said at the very beginning. integration between systems is the key to making data useful. You could argue that data is the new soil of the hospitality industry. Those who understand data better and act upon that data quicker and more intelligently will be the winners. And integrating and validating diverse data sources is going to be key. Making the connection between different sources of data, understanding the patterns behind different sources of data, actually owning the data that sits somewhere in your PMS, in your reservation systems, in your OTA interfaces, and integrating that into one stack of data that makes sense is the first key skill that we would point out. Nancy, if you would please move to the next slide. The second key skill that we will want to point to is to make sure that your data and your applications are agnostic of the interfaces. You also made a very convincing point of mobile phones and the importance of mobile devices in the entire customer journey. You all know that your guests bring their mobile phones or their iPads and expect to be interacting with you on these devices, whether pre, post stay or during the stay, and making sure that your data is available on any device, any place, regardless of when and where, is the second most important skill that hotels need to embrace. And the third important skill that we would argue a hotel needs to embrace, and Nancy, if you would please go to the next slide, is that despite all that data and despite all the systems, you could never automate all decisions when it comes to a guest. A guest might have ordered Diet Coke during his last 5 stays, but this time he still wants Sprite. So if you automate too many elements of your guest journey, then that might be wrong. On the other hand, if you don't automate, then you forgo the benefits of really using the data that's available to you to improve your guest services. So finding the right balance between automated decision and human decision making will be the third critical success factor for hotels. And with this, I'm giving it back to Nancy. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Stefan. So I actually want to open up a group discussion and again talk about integrations and bring that back to all of you. You know, when it comes to integrations, I think a lot of hotels, they make decisions based off of what software integrates with one another and how to handle that integration. And Jos, I'll throw that question out to you first, since a lot of this has to do with the PMS system. You know, should hotels make software decisions with integrations in mind?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you know, if you don't do that, so if you, then you kind of, you know, cut yourself and your fingers down the road. Even if you think that the software that you buy today provides everything you need today, it's going to run out of things you need tomorrow that you're not aware of. You know, going back to Stefan's point about machine learning, all those things. There are so many things that are happening in technology today that are going to be so much faster than the time you want to buy a PMS for, as an example, and how long you want to use that. You know, it's going to be, if you buy a PMS today, if it doesn't change, and if you don't allow it to connect to other things, it's going to be out of date probably even within the 1 or 2 years already. So you really need to make sure that you have a PMS or any system for that matter that allows easy accessibility to other third-party systems that can augment the process that you have in the hotel.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And Stefan, you have quite a bit of experience with integrations, with Snapshot managing data between all of these different platforms. What would you say in terms of advising hotels on how they can integrate multiple different platforms?
I think the key to integration from a hotel perspective is really owning the data from all your systems. As you said, you don't know how your requirements will develop. But what will not change is that you need to have easy access that is agnostic of the particular application to the data that you need to base your decisions on. So being able to have that data in a, I would say, neutral repository to a certain extent, regardless of whether it's PMS or non-PMS data, is key. Because if that data then sits below a standard API, as you said, kind of an interface that is agnostic of the application that sits on top of it, then as a hotel, you get the flexibility that you need to prosper in a cloud environment.
Mm-hmm. And Gotham, I'm going to bring you in here for a second, because with a lot of hotels, when they have to integrate their CRS with a PMS, they do tend to run into some issues. What are some of the biggest ones that typically are encountered, and how do you solve for those issues?
Well, I think one of the biggest issues with integrations is not just a technology one, but it's also a practical one in terms of the ability or the availability of either company to schedule the integration. With the number of integrations that each of our class of systems needs to address, the development or engineering teams are often just have to put it off until months later. So that's one big problem. And this is a problem also because integrations are very complex currently. They're not facilitated and they're not made easy by the use of technology where interfaces are standardized and different data models are understood in the same way by each company. So while our industry does offer standardized interfaces, the way these different systems interpret this information is always a little different from each other. So it's a question of practicality in terms of integration, as well as how different companies interpret different different data.
Great. I actually want
Nancy, can I briefly add to that?
Of course.
This is Stefan again. Building on what we've just heard, I can only stress that we at Snapshot, we have already integrated with about 40 PMS companies, and we're currently talking to 40 more. And we have, in a very cumbersome and detailed process, managed to create a data standard that is the same, not just in terms of data structure, but also in terms of data interpretation across all those 30 PMSs. So the API that we are offering for app developers and for analytics does exactly that. It takes the pain away from individual players in the hospitality to integrate, with being able to integrate to a standardized platform and API that goes across various different vendors. So I can only stress that integration point is not just data structure, but also data interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think I think the work that Snapshot is doing in order to harmonize data interpretation across different companies and different systems is really key to what this industry needs.
Right.
One of the biggest pain points for a CRS company, or for that matter, I would imagine a PMS company as well, is integration. So Snapshot's work is incredibly important to our industry.
I also want to bring up in the involvement of the hotel at this point. You know, we saw before in the polls that generally the hotel owner or operator has the final say in choosing a technology, but in the end, it's a lot of the staff that will have to end up using it. So, you know, I'll throw this question to all of you. What's your advice for getting more of the hotel staff involved, or, you know, at what point should they be brought into the process when it comes to selecting a technology and implementing one?
Maybe I can take that one as a first, because I think we've seen some recent experience with our customers that we bring on board. I think in general we've taken a fairly new approach to the way PMS should work and put a lot of around the tablet, and especially around check-in, check-out. We see that some of the operations within a hotel is initially struggling with, you know, okay, I bought the tablet, I bought the solution that can run on a tablet, I can move the person away from a front desk, I'm checking in and everywhere. But how do I then do that? So I think I think what hoteliers need to do today and tomorrow is, before you buy, what do I want to get out of it? But also, if I buy something new that's going to basically serve customers of today and tomorrow, and those customers of today and tomorrow use mobile devices to a very large extent, then I probably should also change my operational behavior from my staff members a little bit, and maybe the way I want to check people in and check out, maybe I do want to change that a little bit, because there are people out there that don't necessarily want to go to the front desk anymore. So I think the word of advice I would give, since a lot of you are looking for new systems, also use that time to kind of look at your operations to see, okay, I'm getting these new tools, I'm getting this new data. What can I change in the way I've done things over the last 5 to 10 years to actually make it better for my guests going forward?
Mm-hmm.
I can only kind of support. Sorry, no, Colin.
Go ahead, Stefan.
Go ahead.
I can only wholeheartedly support that. I think in the past, the hospitality industry was often forced to adapt their standard operating procedures to what the software allowed them to do. And if you critically look upon your SOPs, then often you would say, this doesn't really make that much sense, but in system A or system B, that's only how far we can go. So building on what you said, I would really say you could embrace the flexibility that new technology gives you, because often that technology does allow you much more individualization of the customer journey in its entirety. Those systems are much more flexible to be adjusted to the standard operating procedures that you really want, where you can focus much more on guest service and don't have to limit your creativity in that area to what the systems allow you to do. So it's, on the one hand, kind of, yes, you need to question that. And as I said, I'm fully supporting Jos here, but building on that, I would say embrace the opportunities that you get out of these new systems, because they will give you much more flexibility, and not just in operating procedures, also in terms of the quickness to implement them. So everything gets much more nimble when it comes to hospitality IT when you embrace that new paradigm of a new technology stack.
Gotham, did you have something to add to that?
I think that what I would add to that is, oftentimes when changing systems, what happens once or during the selection process, or even after going live with a new application, what hoteliers tend to look for is comfort, and they seek comfort in asking the new vendor to rebuild all of the features and functionality and implied standard operating procedures inherent in the previous system. And that is something that I would caution hoteliers from doing, because then you're not really moving forward. What you're doing is asking the new vendor to build old stuff, just because that's how you have done it always. And instead of embracing new ways of doing things, whether those new ways are on the hotel operations side and how housekeeping is handled, or whether it's how revenue managers are doing their pricing in a system. So that's another area that I would caution hoteliers against, is to just be careful not to ask the new vendor to rebuild what you've had before.
Mm-hmm. At this time, I also want to welcome any audience questions. I don't think we've had any questions come in at the moment, but we'll just keep on discussing, and if we have any questions come up, I'll bring them up. I do want to touch quickly on the idea of price versus ROI, and really how to evaluate a tech platform. Are all platforms made equal? If they have the equal functionality, then, are they the same? Are we just competing on price here? What would you say to that, Jos?
Nancy, can you repeat that question? Sorry, I missed the last part of it.
So when it comes to evaluating tech platforms for their ROI, and we have the issue of price versus ROI, and should hotels always simply go with the cheapest product, all things similar, if the general functionality is similar?
No, I don't think you should go with the cheapest, but I think in general, what you need to look at it is from pricing is, I saw that, in the survey earlier on, the reluctance of going to the cloud is only about 20% of the people that are participating today. So that's a very small percentage, because a few years ago that was much larger. The difference between pricing and the previous PMSs you acquire is that, in the cloud, we handle a lot of your infrastructure. There is no databases that you have to buy, no servers you have to buy, no nothing really, other than having a good Wi-Fi connection or a good internet connection. Now, there's lots of research being done about the actual cost in addition to buying the software on premises that you have as a hotelier or as a company, and it's up to 4 times as much as you pay for the actual software. So that makes the argument cloud and premises is a very simple one. Cloud is always going to be cheaper than premises, even though that might be not very obvious in the beginning. But I think when you look at, I think pricing, obviously you want to buy the right thing for the right price. You want to also make sure that the company that you buy from, feels comfortable with that price, can work with it, and can continue to provide you with new solutions on an ongoing basis. So I wouldn't buy the cheapest solution. I would definitely look at, quality. I would look also at growth opportunity, and also I would, very important, I think, is to look at the frequency by which that company provides new functionality and which it can integrate, and how it thinks about the future, because it's going to be very important that you make a few changes over the next couple of years to, to be relevant in hotels, I think. And if I just take an example, going back to some of our earlier conversations, not hotel related, but over the last 5 years, there has been a huge change in people starting to buy online, do things online, download movies online. Everything starts to happen online, and a lot of the brick and mortar shops are simply disappearing. Take, for example, Blockbuster, huge video chain in the United States that was pretty much on every corner of the street. They're all gone. They were around at the same time as Netflix was around, but Netflix, smart enough, started to think about what's going on and what we need to change. We need to make sure that we are ahead of that curve. And as a hotelier, you need to do the same thing. I think there is a lot of things are happening that are not particularly clear at this point in time. So buy software that's open and that evolves and that has a great set of integration APIs, and ideally can talk to things like, what Stefan's talking about, that put a lot of data in the same place, denormalize it, and allow accessibility of that data for many more purposes that we still have to, figure out ourselves over the next couple of years. Hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you, Joost. Gautam or Stefan, do you want to have anything to say to that? After that, we'll wrap it up.
I think from my perspective, Joost covered most of the points that I would have raised as well.
Okay. All right.
Honestly, I can only second that. There's nothing much to add. Joost made a great point here.
Okay, great. All right. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We will be putting a copy of the recording of this webinar as well as the slides online, and we'll make that available to all registrants as well. So if you have any additional questions, please feel free to email me at nancy@traveltripper.com. Thank you again. Thank you, Joost, Gautam, and Stefan. That was a great conversation we just had.
You're very welcome. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.